Welcome, everyone. We are so excited to be doing our first Fireside Chat. Cybersecurity Marketing Society is a closed group for cybersecurity marketers. Our goal is to create a community where we can share resources, collaborate, help each other, and really just have a place to vent or celebrate wins in cybersecurity marketing. If you want to join us, you can visit cybersecuritymarketingsociety.com. Feel free to request to be one of our experts in the next Fireside Chat. Join our next Cyber Beers and Tears happy hour, which we have on Fridays. It's usually every other Friday, unless there are changes. And definitely visit our website and check out Cybersecurity Marketing Conference tab, submit to speak, or just sign up to attend, and we'll be in touch with more details on that. So today, we're going to address a really hot topic, which is lead generation in a digital virtual world. The last few months for us as cybersecurity marketers has been really challenging. We've been challenged to pivot quickly, re-strategize, and really understand the new norm, and how do we navigate these new crazy raging waters. So we invited three amazing cybersecurity marketing experts. Today we'll be chatting with Emmy Leberte, who is Marketing Director at Stealth ISS Group Inc. We have Christopher Mitchell, who is Demand Generation Manager at Simplify, and Scott Coleman, who will be joining us a little bit later, hopefully, who is the VP of Marketing at Owl Cyber Defense. So thank you so much to all of you for being our experts today. We understand we have long days and we have long weeks. So the fact that you're joining after hours to give us a little bit of your brain power is much appreciated. We are super, super happy to have you. So I'm going to jump right in, but actually before I jump in, sorry, some housekeeping items. Everyone will be muted except for myself and the panelists. We will make time for Q&A at the end, so do use the chat box to submit your questions, and we'll do our best to cover all of them. Yeah, so we'll just jump right in. I'm going to start with all of you panelists, and you can jump on a question if you feel like you want to take that one. Otherwise, pass it on to the next one. So really, it's just my first question is, what popped into your head when the whole world went on lockdown and now in-person events were canceled? What was going on in your head?
I'll start. So I kind of had two initial thoughts. The first was honestly just extreme disappointment that I wasn't going to get to travel on a regular basis, whether it was as a event sponsor, host, attendee, what have you, like being in Vegas at Black Hat in like 2 weeks. Very sad that that's not happening. But I think once that initial upset passed, I was honestly really excited because kind of in my role, digital marketing is like my wheelhouse. I have a counterpart on my team who's in charge of events, and she's absolutely brilliant. But I think that, this has really kind of shown more of a light on the digital aspect. And so I think there's an immense amount of opportunity right now. So I think after that, I was very excited.
Yeah, I'll have to back him on that. I had a flight, I was going to an event in Vegas, and then I had a flight that next morning, and I got a message saying, hey, the event on Monday is canceled. And I'm like, I love being behind the computer. So I was like, yes, like despite the circumstances, I was so excited because I was like, yes, I can just, this is gonna be great. And I was just excited to see other companies embrace like this digital world, because that's what I love. And like you said, it's just exciting to see this change despite, everything that's going on.
That's true. I know for myself, I immediately thought, okay, that's fine. So let's reinvest what we were going to spend on events into something else. And at least, hey, the cost per click, the cost per lead is going to be so much less. So the silver lining there, right? Yeah. So, I mean, and at this point, so now a couple of months have passed. What are some of the challenges that you're still facing when it comes to keeping that lead generation engine going in marketing?
I think the digital world has gotten so saturated, and it's a lot of noise, and it is hard to stand out. it's kind of a great thing because I would love to see this digital world and all these businesses move remote and have it just brings a lot more opportunity. But at the same time, you got to be very careful and creative with your messaging to break through that noise.
Yep. And I also think that another challenge is without the physical events, without being even, from a sales perspective, going and doing customer on-sites or prospect on-sites, I think it's just slowed down our sales cycle a little bit. It hasn't like completely disappeared by any means, but it's definitely slowed things down. So I think it's more important now than ever to continue nurturing the leads that you have in your database, whether they're prospects, customers, what have you, and doing everything you can to keep them engaged.
Right. And yeah, so like I touched on the fact that, cost per lead is much cheaper than in-person events virtually. How have you sort of transferred some of those budget allocations from in-person events to other channels?
I know for us, obviously a lot of the events, while they were like physically canceled, they're all still happening online. So we're still investing in those, but obviously they're a lot cheaper. And so we're also taking some of that money and we're investing it in our webinars, other, digital channels, new marketing technologies and whatever we can from that point of view. But I want to say real quick that it's honestly really cool, actually, that now that all these events are going online, I think they're becoming free for the most part from an attendee perspective. There's way more people signing up for these online events than who would have gone normally if they were physical. So I think from that perspective, not only is our cost per lead going down, but it's like dramatically going down, and we're getting way more bang for our buck in terms of volume. And so again, while our sales life cycle might be kind of a little extended, I think that, at least from my perspective, again, we've put a big emphasis on nurture. So I think that as long as we've created a system, a positive system, nurture program, what have you, the more leads we can fill at the top of the funnel, the more that will pass through, and ultimately the more sales we'll have. And I think every other like marketing efficiency metric, so cost per MQL, cost per opportunity, they're all going down in a positive way. So I think again, it's just really cool to see what's happening right now.
Yeah, I also think because we're experiencing the same thing, that you kind of have the opportunity to go beyond state lines and border lines, and your reach is just so much further. But I've also seen, the quality is improved because there's so many webinars out there, and that right now, and at this point, people aren't just signing up to sign up for a webinar and have an hour away from work. They're going to things they actually are interested in and actually want to go and learn from. So I've seen, not only more leads, but more, just a higher quality of them.
That's true. I'm going to throw in a different question that I actually didn't even have on the list, but in terms of your sales team, what are you hearing from them, from what they're seeing, what the sentiment looks like on the field? I know from experience we've had, especially as soon as things, mid-March is that mark that everybody keeps, thinking back to. A lot of people in cybersecurity were just trying to figure out what is going on, how to make sure everything is secure, the work from home challenge as well. And a lot of times we've heard from sales, like, look, people don't have time to buy new products. Any new initiative has been put to the back burner. Either their budget was cut, or they're just emotionally drained that they don't even want to hear from sales. What are some of the things that you've heard from your sales team?
All that. I mean, I think so. Like, hospitality was a huge industry for us, and they're not even thinking about their cybersecurity right now. And unfortunately, they are, like, everything's on hold, budgets are cut, we're trying to survive. And I think a lot of businesses are kind of at that state. So yes, they're like, this was something that we really do need, but we don't have the budget, our supply chain everyone's kind of wrecked in this whole situation. And yeah. I think there's a lot of just kind of hurry up and wait kind of attitude around.
Sorry. Yeah, I was gonna say we've seen the exact same thing, and I think it's definitely industry specific. So to your point, like transportation, for example, like airlines, like we're not doing an airline deal in 2020. It's just not happening. But I think some other industries are doing well. Some, even better if they're like online retailers, stuff like that. So I definitely think it's industry specific. But also to your point, the burnout, the like how do you adjust to remote working, all of those things, we're definitely hearing all of that. And we've actually our content director at Simplify, also brilliant, he's created like a guide on how to build a remote security operations center, how to deal with security operations center burnout. Like we've created kind of a lot of that, like how do you secure VPNs in a work from home workforce and stuff like that. And we've ungated all of it. So we're not like, yeah. So we've, been promoting that to the public, and that's easily our guide to remote SOCing has easily become our highest trafficked asset on our website. And I think, again, the fact that we're ungating everything, goes a long way with the security community.
Yeah, that's
So good.
Go ahead, sorry.
I think that ungating and just the amount of, I've seen that become common, and there is this almost this whole shift in marketing where it is a little bit more conversational and helpful. And I think the companies that are really embracing like, okay, how can we help and share information without like being cheap for a lead, like it's really changed, and it's been really great. I have learned personally from just like the marketing side of the world so much more from ungated things and free talks and just free consultation. It's honestly been great, and it has shifted everything.
It's true. A lot of people are just so tired of being sold to, so tired of being marketed. There's overload of content. Social media feeds are saturated. So you know what? Ungating a lot of resources, helpful resources, and really just leading with the fact that, look, we're just here to help, and we've done the research for you, and here's something that you can actually apply in your job today and be better or solve a big challenge, is an amazing way to create that brand following, right, and that brand affinity. And then essentially when they need your services or your product, they'll come to you because they'll remember that. But unfortunately, I think there's still a little bit of education to be done on this sort of strategy, because you do get pushback a lot of times of, well, what revenue is this going to bring? We're not even going to know what leads are actually reading the content, and that's so we're almost there. I think it's good that at least some of us are having that conversation, but not quite. So I'm going to move on to the next one. So yeah, really, we're going back to virtual events, obviously. But how has this experience, pivoting and going virtual and living in an online world, how has it reshaped your outlook on virtual events for the future?
So we had done virtual events a little bit before this, and we always had feedback. I was like, I wish this was in person. And we all loved the virtual event kind of platform because it gives you so much more opportunity to make content out of your virtual events. You can advertise that in so many different ways. You can take clips and turn them into podcasts. You have all your social media posts. It's just, you can make so much more out of a virtual event with not a lot of, money and energy. So I have loved seeing, that way of the virtual events, just all the content creation that's come out of it.
Yeah, I completely agree. The serial content, as we like to call it, that comes out of it, the video clips, podcasts, everything. Yeah, it's a lot less lift and still very effective.
It's true, you do get a lot more versus, chasing your sales team at the conference on the show floor, asking for pictures and asking for video snippets, or having to wait after the conference is done to hit your, speaking session recording and then use that. So it's right there. It's very interactive. The hot topic is on, and you're able to, in real time, share what's going on social media, grow the audience. Yeah, it is true. I never really thought of it that way. Here's a fun one. What did you do with your swag? Where did you put it? Is it in your house? Do you have like 50 boxes of t-shirts in your garage? What are we doing with these things?
We shoved our swag in our sales director's office. He has a home office and is collecting dust, taking up space.
What about Chris?
Yeah, I think we had a lot in our office in New York City, but then obviously like New York City went on lockdown right away. So I think a lot of it's at our field director's house as well. So luckily I'm not in charge of swag.
So speaking of swag, I have heard this recently where event planners that are doing a lot of virtual events, they're creating this thing called virtual goodie bag. And everybody gets one at the end of the event or at the end of the speaking session they've attended. And this could be a nice opportunity for us marketers to push more content, but helpful content. Obviously, it's not just to push content, but really provide something that's valuable for the attendees and take something away from them with them, instead of just promising a recording of the session at the end of the event and that sort of thing. So virtual goodie bags, why not? Since everything else is going virtual, there could be some really creative, fun ways in which we could use that idea.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. I haven't heard that yet.
Yeah, I just learned about it recently, so it's amazing. So yeah, so in many of our teams, whether big or small, I think we all tended to have someone within our team that's especially doing just event coordinating, logistics, planning, and that sort of thing. If you had a team that was managing primarily events and now that in-person events are not going on, how have you shifted those resources? Obviously, the obvious answer, is webinars and virtual events, but a lot goes into organizing an in-person event. So I would imagine that there is a little bit of resource availability there. How has your team shifted some of those resources?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, the obvious shifting to virtual events, shifting to webinars, other kind of digital media, but also I think we're actually hosting even more, I guess, virtual events ourselves than we would have in-person events, and we're keeping them relatively small, whether they're regional or industry specific. We're doing. We have a very creative name for it. We're doing a couple different things, whether it's a training session or even just a security happy hour. Like I think we're calling it Party Like a Sock Star.
That's a good one. I love that.
So I think we're actually hosting we're doing the hosting as opposed to sponsoring even more than we otherwise would be.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. We started a CISO Live series, and we do not have an event team, but so we've just kind of took the energy that we would be putting into the online events the in-person events to creating our own online events, which we've never done that before, and we really enjoy it. So it's been cool to see that shift in our strategy.
Okay, so speaking of that, I'm gonna actually plug in a question that I just thought of. What is your go-to virtual event technology that you've tried and have seen amazing success with?
So we're a startup and we use Zoom because it's affordable.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of vendors out there. Before this, I worked at Carbon Black and we used GoToWebinar. I know a lot of people speak very highly of On24, for example, but they're definitely out of our price range. So we stick with Zoom.
Understandable. Okay. Well, we are also startup and small, and we are using Zoom, and we love it. We're able to do this and get everyone together and have a nice chat. So I'll move on to the next one. Has your team talked about returning to in-person events at all? What's the sentiment there?
Of course we would love to, but there's nothing you can really do or plan right now. It's not up to us, and we're just not wasting the energy on what ifs. So if things open up, great, then we'll start looking at it. But at this point, it's just like, let's just go with the flow and see what happens.
Yeah, I think in terms of events we're sponsoring, like we definitely have to wait and see if they're going to be held or not. But I can say from anything we would personally be hosting, I think we're just foregoing the rest of 2020, and hopefully by the beginning of 2021, things will be in a better place.
Right, that's true. And our country is sort of all over the place with reopening, reclosing, and so there's all these unknowns still that even I think for early 2021, it's too soon to be saying yes. There's definitely going to be anything in in-person events. I've heard that a lot of people were struggling to get their money back from events that they had committed to in 2020. Some event planners are saying, well, we can, keep your money for 2021 because we will have the event in 2021. But a lot of us, like in startup, we kind of need that money in hand to invest it in other channels so we can help sales continue to build that pipeline. Have you had any bad or good experiences? You don't have to name any, particular conference or event, but you've had this in recent months or weeks.
Everything we have been returned, our money has been returned, except one event, which is also kind of a newer event. So I get there, I feel like if they had lost that, they wouldn't have the funds to go the next year. So we're just, whatever, we'll support you, we'll be here next year. But it is startup as well, or not startup, but we are small, and we do wish we had that money to allocate other places.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't
Scott just joined us. Hey Scott, how are you?
Very good. Sorry, apologize.
No worries. Welcome.
Thanks.
So I'm just gonna repeat that last question, and then I'll give you the mic, Chris, and then we can definitely have Scott give us his opinion on it. We were talking about eventually returning to in-person events, and what's the sentiment like within the team and the sales team. And then we moved on to asking whether everyone has gotten their money back from all their investments in 2020 events. Because I mentioned that a lot of us in startup and with small budgets, we'd rather have that money in hand to invest it in other channels to keep the momentum going. But Chris, sorry, you were about to answer.
I was just going to echo what Emmy said in terms of, I think by and large, for the most part, we did get our money back. So not to fret there.
All right. Scott, what's the sentiment in your team for returning to in-person events so far? I mean, for 2021, that is. I don't think there's anything happening this year, right?
We do actually have a couple potential in-person things that we're going to do. InfoSec in the UK in end of October looks like they're going to have an in-person element. So we are not going to exhibit at that. We actually we're going to be a fairly significant sponsor this year, but we've pulled way back on that. But they are going to sort of walk the floor, if you will. And we do have one that's supposed to happen in August. That's still, and this is a really, really small, specialized one with the Navy. So that one's still on the docket at this point for in person. So we do have a couple that it seems like they might actually happen. I mean, I think the sentiment from the team in general is they want to get back out there again. We've done some of the virtual ones. We're basically doing them to see if they're of any value, right? Because unless you actually do them, you don't know are they successful in any way or not. We've collected leads from some of them. So we've done virtual conferences. We've done virtual where some are they actually have like some are just format where you're just presenting one after another, and some actually have these virtual exhibit spaces where you have a booth and you actually brand your booth and all this stuff, right? And you put your logos on it and your keywords and kind of thing. So we've tried a couple different things. So but I think the team is eager to get back out there when it's sort of safe to do so.
That's true. That's very true. Virtual booth. Actually, I'm glad you actually mentioned that. I'd love to know if either of you have tried in any of the virtual events you've held in the last few months, have tried virtual booth, and just to see what your experience there. And I'm going to preface that with, some opinions that I've heard in the field that a lot of times it depends on how well the event coordinators do to drive virtual traffic to your virtual booth. Otherwise, it's kind of difficult. What has been your experiences?
Yeah, I think exactly what you said. I think it depends what platform the vendor is using and how it's set up. Because some we get a ton of traffic, and we're giving personalized demos in our virtual booth, and it's great. And then I think there's other events that have like thousands of registrants and thousands of attendees, and like 7 people over the course of like 2 days will come to our virtual booth. So I think it definitely depends on what platform they're using and kind of how it's set up.
Scott, what was your latest experience with virtual booth? How did that go?
So we had, they had it where there's actually like a common area where you could go out and I wasn't personally involved. We had a couple of people on our team sort of walking the floor trying to attract attention. And then we have folks actually working the booth and responding to chats and responding to inquiries. I think, Chris, it sounds like you guys had more success than we did in terms of the live booth stuff, because we had a handful of people that came by. Now, we're in a slightly different market. We're in this whole government, DoD, intel space where they don't like to identify who they are, what programs they're working on, and things like that. So that's just an everlasting challenge that we have, is they come to shows and they don't have, or everyone's badge says Joe Smith or something, right? But we weren't overly impressed with the virtual booth aspect so far. So, but I guess we try a couple more, and just if it was that particular show, or if there's some of these, and people got to get the hang of it too, right? They're not used to like, oh, where do I go? How do I see vendors? And I've done a bunch of suggestions to these people, creating these events and saying like, it should be like, if there's a talk or a presentation on a particular subject and that subject is relevant to these 3 vendors, it should be like Home Depot. Oh, you're buying a paintbrush? Well, maybe you want a roller and a rag and a drop cloth too, right? So if you're listening to this presentation about this topic, hey, these are 3 vendors you might want to go visit, and you got to make it, help, the vendors get engaged with the people attending, right, kind of thing. So I still think there's a long learning curve on this and how it becomes both fruitful to the sponsors / vendors as well as the attendees.
It's true. Gianna said breadcrumbs to the virtual booth space.
Yeah, exactly right.
I guess I want to ask about, in your opinion, now that all 3 of you have tried virtual events in the past few months, what have you seen in difference in quality between virtual event leads and in-person event leads?
So we have seen an improvement in quality, because I think you're taking away the noise and the clutter and the bags of swag, and you're taking away a lot of these distractions, and people are a little bit more narrowed in on exactly what they want to go look at and what they want to see, and they're not being distracted by the beautiful marketing everywhere. So we've seen a quality definitely in our leads that we've generated from these virtual events.
Yeah, I would say like in terms of overall like registration lists, it's around the same, but definitely in terms of like if we have a speaking session, regardless of whether it's the same amount of people or fewer people attending those speaking sessions, definitely the quality, at least from like looking at titles, at least they definitely look better.
I guess I don't know if we have enough yet to know if we can sort of render a decision on that. Well, we have such a long lead cycle, so it's really hard to know what's, a lot of these shows people have the similar titles and stuff. I'm hoping, that some of the ones where we're actually primary speakers and stuff, hasn't happened yet. We just did one last week where we were, we moderated the keynote sort of panel, and that certainly drove some interesting, high quality leads for us. So, and we're looking to do another one like that. So I think, lots of times it comes down to what you pay for, right? You pay for that premier spot, you're going to get people, right? And if you try and do something, so I think it's sort of the same. I don't say message, but it's the same response that the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. But I don't know if we've seen a change in the quality of leads. We made a concerted effort in 2020 to not collect leads that we didn't think were actually going to be turned into true prospects. So we've been a little more picky this year because we coined the phrase pickles, right? So these leads that really aren't going to turn. So it looks like great on paper. Oh, we've got 1,500 leads. Well, were they really leads, or they were just people coming by, dropping a business card, or grabbing a pen or whatever? So we've been a little more judicious in what we're identifying as leads. So.
Yeah, being picky is a good way to put it. Very true. I want to address some of the questions that came through the chat as we keep going. Scott, earlier we mentioned an idea that some people are doing in terms of virtual events where they're offering a virtual goodie bag, because we were talking about swag and what have you done with your stock of pens and t-shirts. Where are they now? Are they just collecting dust waiting for the next in-person conference or not?
So our stuff is just piled up somewhere, probably downstairs in our marketing closet. I mean, it's good because I'll have a nice chunk of change left over in beer because we're not spending more. What we did buy is suffice. We do have some higher value items, like we actually have Lego sets that are modeled after our products and stuff. So we have been talking about giving some of those away to try and engage with some people. But yeah, the normal swag stuff is definitely just collecting dust downstairs right now.
Yeah, I mean, some of the virtual goodie bag items that you could include could be exclusive content just for those event attendees, where you provide them, I don't know, like a one-pager cheat sheet with key takeaways from the session, things that they would literally take to their job and apply right away and actually start to see some changes and address some pain points that they have in their jobs.
Yeah, we haven't tried anything like that yet. We probably did that this week, honestly. There's a nuclear industry cybersecurity event that happened this week, and we were going to potentially offer up some kind of raffle item and something virtually. I actually don't know if that came to fruition or not. I think that was the first time we were going to attempt to do something along those lines. So, I'll find out how that panned out, if we did or didn't execute against that, if the sponsor. So that's one of the things they normally do at this event is Tuesday evening or whatever. They do like the vendor fair or whatever, and each vendor has the opportunity to contribute a raffle item where you get your name sort of, announced and say, hey, whatever, Raffles, is providing the following, gift or giveaway, blah, blah, blah. So I thought because they had done that in the past that maybe they'd be interested in doing it virtually, but I don't know if I'll have to talk with one of our event coordinators and find out if that happened or not.
Yeah, I think we've done a bunch of the raffles too. So obviously, instead of giving away a bunch of small items like pens or socks, in the thousands at these events, we're doing post-show raffles. So thanks for attending the event. Download our free trial and you'll be entered into winning. Or there's a very large SANS event that's up next week, actually. And for that, we're actually doing a Peloton giveaway.
So is that the SANS Fire that went virtual, or is that a different SANS event? Because we're doing a SANS event in October.
The Digital Forensics and Incident Response.
Oh, okay.
SANS Defer.
Wow.
It'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, I'll let you guys know how it goes. But I mean, we're seeing good traction there. Because people obviously want the bigger gifts, and it works out to like the same amount of money as you would giving away socks or pencils.
Have you been to a SANS Fire in person or a SANS event in person?
I personally have not.
Yeah, so I went to one last year, and oh my God, it was a most bizarre experience ever, because they open up the sort of trade show floor for lunch for 90 minutes. And you go from 0 people to literally 15 people deep, just grabbing swag for 90 minutes straight. You're talking and handing stuff out as fast as you can, and then it goes completely dead. It's like literally like a tidal wave. It comes in, and then it just goes out, and it's like, wow, what the heck just happened? So it's a pretty amazing experience.
Yeah.
I remember talking to you after that, and you're like, I don't know what just happened.
Yeah. So, I know last year at Black Hat, I was at Carbon Black before this, and we were giving away these blue light up like Minecraft swords that said Carbon Black on them.
Yeah.
And we actually had a pretty good spot on the floor. We were like right when you kind of come in, and we had, I think, like 1,400 of those swords, and they were gone within the first like 2 hours.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that element of spontaneous in-person event feeling, I don't think we could ever replicate that in a virtual setting, no matter what we do.
Yeah.
But we see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully in 2021. So be getting out those swag boxes sooner than later. Gianna's asking if anyone has given away a Tesla yet.
No, God. I'd be in line for that one.
Yeah, let me know when they do.
What other questions that I have? Let's see. Oh yeah, so this is actually a good one. How do you get your sales team excited about virtual events? I'm pretty sure they have a little bit of reluctancy with, is this going to be worth my time? What kind of leads am I going to get out of this?
I have the best sales director ever. He's like, he MCs all of our events, and he has this like, he used to work in radio, so he's like all about it. And he always has these like extravagant intros. Like he has props, and I'm like, what? He refuses to tell me how he's going to intro, because he's like, you're going to shut it down. And I'm like, so I just sit there like cringing, like my teeth are grinding, like, oh God, what's he gonna do? And he calls me out some way in every single one. But I'm so lucky to have such a supportive sales guy who's like, what do I need to do? What props can I bring? I'm like, none, please.
I don't think I'm doing anything special to help motivate them. We're definitely just rotating through. Everyone's taking turns. Again, being a startup and having like a smaller team, both marketing and sales, I think there's more of a desire to work together and help one another. So I don't feel like I need to twist anyone's arms per se to help get involved.
Yeah, I mean, aside from the actual virtual trade show, right, where it's actually sponsored by someone, most of the virtual events that we're doing, we're having like folks from engineering, from product management, myself, which that's just because I have a technical product management background, that have been participating in most of the virtual events. So that's typically we do anyways with our speaking slots, and so we sort of maintain that same cadence. But in terms of staffing, the handful of virtual shows that we've done, the sales folks have done that. There was definitely some reluctance there. There was concern about, can I respond to these chats fast enough? Are we going to provide the right answers? That kind of, I like to normally walk up to people and, there's a personal relationship there, right? So that's their normal mode of operation. And how am I going to express that by typing, on my keyboard, kind of thing. So we have some folks on our sales team that, are veterans, and they're much more comfortable with that sort of one-to-one speaking, engagement rather than, chat. So.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to a question we asked before you joined us, Scott, because I want your opinion on this. Is what's going on, our new normal, is that going to change your outlook on virtual events? Do you see them being a good mix of the event strategy in the future, even as things sort of reopen?
I mean, I think they certainly could be, if the organizers do a good job of connecting the visitors to the sponsors, right? And and not leaving it up, because, you know, I think in a real event, people take the time to say, okay, I'm going to walk the floor, right? I'm actually going to go up and down aisles. I'm actually seek out vendors and talk to them. I don't know if they're motivated, you know, in a virtual sense. I think they're motivated to listen to speakers. So if you have a speaking slot, right, I think that's valuable. To be at your virtual booth without the show organizers helping to drive people, helping people to find you, so that's the learning curve. You know, we're not counting on it. We're seeing the path we're going down instead is more about, we've actually decided to create 4 influencers. So we're going to be promoting them, doing more podcasts. We've been doing a lot more with webinars. So the things that we're doing are virtual, but we're generating it, right? It's not that we're relying on traditional organizers of events to help us with that. We have reached out and used some of their lists, right? Because the thing that they have that we don't have is access to their population, right? So if it's, you know, if it's the cybersecurity folks, you know, within the power distribution networks, right? They know the 12,000 people, whatever, in that space, and I don't have that list of 12,000. So, you know, we've tried to reach out and use them to say, hey, we're interested in, and it's because it's not buying lists, right? We know them, we have relationships with these organizers. And therefore we trust their membership, right? So we're working companies that have members rather than, hey, we're just buying a list from some schmo off the street, right? We just don't do that. So I think it's about leveraging the members or the subscribers to those verticals that we're trying to address. Because we have so many different verticals we're trying to hit. So I think it's about creating our own content, creating our own sort of virtual things that and create some center of gravity around that. And then leveraging those entities that have existing memberships that we can tap into, and then try and build, you know, a following from there.
Okay, cool. All right, I have 4 minutes until we welcome questions from everyone. So make sure you use the chat box and send in questions. I'm gonna ask one last question that I didn't even have on the list, but I'm gonna ask it. In terms of sales cycle, has it shortened? Is it longer now after COVID hit? Is it the same? Or I don't know, I have no idea. I mean, is that you? I think you're cutting off.
Oh, am I cutting out?
A little bit.
Okay.
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it is longer, but I feel like it's still relatively new in all this. I mean, it hasn't even been half a year yet at this point. So we've seen some accounts take longer and some not. Just kind of depends.
Yeah, I think like we said earlier, the sales cycle is getting longer, but I think it's also very industry specific. So again, transportation, hospitality, those deals are getting pushed, you know, way out. Whereas, you know, online retailers, for example, they're pretty normal for the most part. So I think it depends.
I would say that I don't think the sales cycle is taking longer. What we're seeing is delay in processing the paperwork, right? So we do a lot of government things, and they're on furlough, or they're doing staggered, where they're in 1 week and out 1 week. And so something that might have taken 2 weeks before is now 4 weeks because they're only in every other week and things like that. So we haven't seen demand go away. We haven't seen funding for projects go away, which has been good. We've just seen longer, and I guess it is technically part of the sales cycle, but the selling's done, and we're just trying to get the paperwork through the process and get the PO and all those kinds of things approved. So there's some delay in basically creating the revenue, but it's more around the paperwork side of things. So.
Okay, I think it's time for Q&A. We have Dallin asked, what are some indicators that a virtual event is actually a good event? That's a good one.
For me personally, I look at, which I guess it could be bad because they are the smaller, less known business that are going to do a good event, but the person who's hosting it, the people who are involved with it, the people on their team. If I go onto their LinkedIn accounts and there's nothing educational about it, it seems like I'm going to get slapped with a sales pitch, I'm going to avoid that. If it's something where it's a brand that I trust and I know I'm going to go on there and I'm going to come out with a lot of value, then that's where I'm going. But I could be missing some quality smaller business events because of that.
I took that question as sort of like post virtual event. How do you know if that was successful or not? So forgive me because that's just how I interpreted it.
Either way, that's fine. If you talk about post, that's also good.
But I know for like me, for example, I think it's all based on time frame. So like immediately after the fact, was it, you know, it's like how many people registered if you had a speaking session, how many people attended the speaking session, and during the speaking session, like how many questions were asked is kind of that initial gut, like, oh, this was a good event, or, you know, only 7 people came to our virtual booth. This was just so poor. And then I think from there, it's like maybe a month out, it's like how many meetings was the SDR team able to book? And then, you know, more than like whatever, 6 months later, it's like how much pipeline was generated, right? So just kind of those basic indicators, especially the pipeline one, if you want to think about doing it again next year or not.
Yeah, so I think I agreed with Chris. You know, I think those are the same measurements that we would use. Our sales cycles are much longer, so we don't usually know for at least 9 months to a year whether or not, you know, stuff is turned into sometimes even to meetings and stuff. So it's harder. So we're so early on in the virtual, you know, world that we're not at a point where we can actually sort of measure pipeline or effectiveness or meetings or anything like that. I guess if all of a sudden we had a whole bunch more, we could say, oh, well, this is definitely being more effective than what we'd seen in the past. But we haven't seen that. We've had sort of the same kind of interaction in terms of visitors and attendees and that kind of stuff. But we're trying to make more out of them. Every time we do a virtual event, we're saying, okay, can you co-author a white paper with us, right? Can you do a podcast with us? Can you, you know, is there something else that we can do in terms of, can we make the experience larger rather than sort of a one hit in and out? So, I mean, we do that anyways, but we've been, you know, a lot of the virtual stuff is cheap for the organizer to sort of give away or include, right? In terms of an extra, and Maria, I think you sort of got us on this path 2 years ago, is like just asking for more things like, can you also, you know, help us with, you know, doing additional posts? Can you do something, you know, on LinkedIn? Can you do additional social media stuff? Can we get on, you know, the app for, you know, for the schedule and things like that? So just sort of asking for more value around the whole event. So, you know, we've been doing a lot more of that to try and make sure that there is value in what we're getting.
That's true. And this is the time to ask for more, because these event organizers, they want the vendors to still be involved. They don't want them to walk away from it. So this is the time to say, well, this isn't part of our package, but what about
Exactly.
these
Yep.
5 things?
Exactly.
All right. I think Gianna had another question. How do you nurture leads differently now that you don't have in-person interactions?
I don't think we're necessarily doing nurture different as much as we're just taking our time to make sure that the nurture program we have is as good as it can possibly be. So making sure it has the most updated content, making sure we're leveraging our MarTech solutions. Like we use Marketo, for example, and using their engagement programs, using dynamic emails to have like persona specific messaging per email. So it's more unique to the individual, A/B testing subject lines. Just really, really putting in the effort to make sure our nurture is as successful as possible.
Emmy, did you want to add to that?
Pretty much the same. So we're doing the same. We changed kind of the format of our emails to be, you know, they're coming directly from me. now, and it's a little bit more personable and more of a conversation. But
That's true.
yeah.
I think a lot of us are also trying to lead with empathy during these times too, in our messaging, versus the old way of doing things where you start high level and best practices, and then down the funnel you get more product specific. I think now it's empathy all the way from top of the funnel all the way to the bottom, and we have no choice because that's really what has to happen in order to gain their trust eventually to make that sale. Stephanie mentioned that you're using a lot more video now in your nurtures, which is interesting. Are you using Sigster for that or any other tool? I'm going to mute you, Stephanie, because I need to hear this. Let's see. Can you unmute Stephanie, Gianna? Your host. There you go.
We're using basically light boards. So light board videos, and just like really cheap. I mean, we're nothing fancy, just for engagement, just to have like another face. Cause I feel right now with virtual events, we have, it's text heavy, it's presentation heavy. So anything to feel like more of an interaction is all we're doing.
Very interesting. Yeah, our surprise panelist is Stephanie.
Sorry, I was going to start typing it in here.
No, it's fine. It's fine. This is good. Thank you so much. It's really video. I have to look into how to do that more. Maybe that's a blog post for us. Let's see. One more question, and I think we could wrap it up. And yes, to answer your question, Dallin, yes, this is being recorded and we're going to share it. Obviously, it's going to live on our website forever and ever, and then we'll share it on our LinkedIn and Twitter. I think Gianna had one more question. Are you integrating physical swag into direct marketing campaigns, or is direct marketing too creepy now? Yeah, because don't we have to have their home addresses now that everyone's working from home?
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's creepy, right?
I think, like I said earlier, we're still doing it to a degree, in terms of like the post online event raffles with the like Apple AirPods, or again, we just launched like a free trial version of our product. So when we did like the email blast, it was like, if you sign up in the next 2 weeks, X amount of people will win something. And I've just been messaging them directly saying like, hey, you won, what's your home address? I promise I won't put it in Salesforce type of thing. It's been pretty fun. So
yeah, I think if you preface with that, I think people will be like, yeah, I trust that you said that.
So we started doing the same thing, and then I got weirded out about it. I was like, I feel so weird, or just like, I would not want to open mail from somebody. Like, I get weird opening mail from Amazon because I'm like, this virus. And I was like, I'm not going to send stuff. I still have like from May packages on my desk over there that are packed up with people's addresses on them that I was like, I'm going to wait to send these to you. And they're like, yeah, we get it. Please don't send them. So
I mean, there's always virtual gift cards, virtual Amazon cards,
yeah,
Spotify cards. I guess we could get creative here.
yeah, I actually have a question for my fellow panelists. I know when this first started, sending like an Uber Eats gift card was like super like novel and cool and fun. Is that still cool? Has that played itself out already in the past like 4 months? Is that still a draw to people?
I'm always reluctant to play off of trends, honestly, because they feels like the message gets lost somehow, and the people who are interested in your cards may not actually be interested in your products. So we haven't done a lot of that historically. We've done very targeted things. I mentioned before, I think I mentioned that we do our Legos. We have our Lego sets, and we'll send those as direct mail in a very targeted way because it's totally unique, right? And what we've asked people is to like film your kids putting it together, right? We'll keep them anonymous, blah, 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 and how fast did they assemble their Lego sets and things like that. So we've been trying to be a little more creative, I guess it is, but we have not done any direct mail since February or whatever, so it's been pretty much shut down for us at this point.
I think you bring up a good point, Scott, but maybe the idea is to use that sort of tactic to delight current customers. Just to say, thank you for being our amazing customer. Here is a little gift card, or here's a little thing to show our appreciation. Because now that we may have a little bit more time to figure out, okay, a better digital strategy, a good chunk of that should definitely be concentrating on becoming more customer centric and just saying, we appreciate your business, thank you. And please renew so our churn rate can stay nice and low.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a pure customer marketing play, you're right. It's probably, they know you already, right? They know you're not trying to, you want them to renew. We're not really pitching them on stuff, right? So it may be a, keep the relationship warmer, than it would otherwise be. So yeah, I can see the value in that.
Yeah, we don't do it because, what we have found from personally getting gifts and stuff, it's not the gifts that's going to keep us as a customer. It is,
right.
It's your product solving our issues, and your fun gift card or your whatever, like, thank you, but it doesn't really apply. So we haven't taken that approach.
Well, I think that's all the questions I had. I think I covered everyone's questions on the chat box. This has been a really, really good chat. If you're interested in being one of our expert panelists in the next Fireside Chat, definitely reach out. And if you're not on our Slack group, make sure you apply to join. It's super easy. It's right on our website. The conversations in Slack are amazing. They're fun, they're helpful. And we do have quite a bit of channels, so I'm pretty sure you'll find something that interests you within the group. And no, we're, Aileen's talking about the Peloton. I was gonna say, no, we're not offering Pelotons for our new members. We're not quite there yet, but hey, maybe we'll get there one day. Definitely check out Cybersecurity Marketing Conference that's coming up. We are accepting speakers, and of course, we're accepting attendees, and share it with your friends and colleagues. And we'll see you next time, everyone. Thank you so much to our panelists, and thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me.
Great job.